Так, колеги, зараз
Colleagues will speak about the national creation of the National Anti-Corruption Bureau. I'll invite Viktor Chumak, Serhiy Leshchenko, Yegor Sobolev, and Daryna Kalenyuk. Please. Good afternoon. My name is Daryna Kalenyuk, Center to Fight Corruption. We'd like to inform you that there is one thing which is missing in Ukraine. There is creation of National Anti-Corruption Bureau. Despite the fact that in Ukraine, for 2 months, when this law was approved, there is no process to set up this very important body. In our opinion, this process artificially postponed. Why? Because, first of all, there was a competition committee was not set up, and that commission must hire a director. Now the parliament, the president, and the government must appoint 3 candidates, 3 representatives for the competition commission that will hire the director. Let's postpone the process to set up a new agency, which is super important for Ukraine. Why? Because Ukraine, 24 years of independence, we have a chance to set up at least one law enforcement body. We received information that sanctions from Yanukovych and his environment will be cancelled. A key reason: no investigation of financial crimes of top officials. It shows that we need to set up a National Anti-Corruption Bureau as soon as possible to investigate financial crimes of the previous government and all this. And also to confiscate assets where they still not bikes, but where they still trucks now and trains. Now MPs will explain to you what should be done. Honestly, leaders of Ukrainian state, it seems like they look like those people who betray, because the society gives them one gun, the other gun, and they raise up their hands and they say, we don't want to fight. Well, there was a great number of laws approved, and they allowed to start a real fight against corruption. The government, the president, applauded and told, look, we're great guys, and they forgot about that. We're against this. We will not allow them to forget. No need to approve laws if they're not implemented. So let's start with the most important. The National Anti-Corruption Bureau will be focused on fighting top corruption, and it should be the first that will start working. As the head of the Committee on Corruption Fighting in the Parliament, and my committee asked me to speak to all the factions and groups in the parliament with a request to delegate our 3 people to the competition committee that will hire the first director of this bureau. It's very important to find such a person, because that will be a real engine that the bureau will work. He must organize hiring all the stuff. He must be a father or mother of a new anti-corruption bureau. And how successful we are in hiring that person, the success of the project depends. The government and the president do nothing to find such a person. They have not appointed their representatives to that competition committee, though it's easy for them to do that. Probably the parliament should be an example. We sent such a letter, and by Tuesday we are waiting from all factions and groups proposals who from the parliament should help to select the new director, the first director in the history of Ukraine of the National Anti-Corruption Bureau. At the same time, in that letter, I asked leaders of parliamentary factions to pay attention to candidates who were selected by civic groups, people who are respected who are professional and who are independent. There's no need to delegate it to the competition committee representative political groups. No, it's very important that experts belong work in that group who organize a real competition and who will select corruption fighter, corruption fighter number one, who will show how to start. If by next Tuesday we receive candidates, we are ready to have our committee on Wednesday, and on Thursday we'll vote for the decision.
Good afternoon. I also share Yegor's concern that the Anti-Corruption Bureau is hampered now, and despite the fact that in the law it is written that the Anti-Corruption Bureau has to be established in January 2015. To be able to implement the law, we should be able to finance it, which has to be approved this year, while in the state budget we did not see any item lines devoted neither to the Anti-Corruption Bureau nor to the Anti-Corruption Committee. The Ministry of Finance promised to think about these two item lines, but within that 6 days, without this period of time, which has left by the end of budgeting period, we are having less and less hopes that we will have these budget lines. Actually, the process on Anti-Corruption Bureau establishment has stopped now, and this undermines agreements with the United States and the EU states, and all of us know that they are losing patience, and they will not probably deliver money. Their logic is quite clear, since they allocate money for assistance to Ukraine. They would like to be sure that those money won't be wasted and simply stolen. And they want tough control over them. I will speak more specifically. I'm happy to be here together with my younger colleagues. I've been dealing with these problems for quite a long period of time. I believe that now we have a joint vision how to tackle corruption. And now closer to Anti-Corruption Bureau, probably you remember that in October we have passed the law on anti-corruption measures, and you might recollect all that criticism to this law, that during final reading, some provisions of that law were repealed from final version, and it was extremely important to pass that law in October and to get a majority in the parliament. Due to this, we crossed out some provisions. Despite this fact, in the coalition agreement we signed a special anti-corruption section about that measures that had to be implemented in order to make this law effective. And then appeared the bill number 12 about 5096. It introduces changes to the law on National Anti-Corruption Bureau, the law on preventing corruption, the law on prosecutor's office. I will describe very briefly major changes. First of all, we want to make this body an independent. The head of this office should be independent. Actually, we are now bringing into the law that that formulation which existed before the first reading. The Cabinet of Ministers brings candidates on the table and submits them to the President, and the Parliament is not participating in this process. This requires transparent competition with at least 4 or 5 candidates, among which you may select a good candidate. Also, we understand that this body should be prevented from corruption virus from the first day. And we wanted to have a provision of preventing from hiring into positions former officers from prosecution, law enforcement, militia, etc., 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 law enforcement agencies. These are those people who had been fighting corruption for 23 years. They now need some rest, and we will form this body from scratch from those people who will be eager to work. And the President has reached an agreement in Singapore that our anti-corruption officers will be trained in Singapore and other countries, and they will be ready to work actively in their positions. On the other hand, we mentioned that independence of those people should be guaranteed by their higher salaries, and also we mentioned that provision was crossed out from the version which has passed. Now we are bringing this provision back to the law, and the salaries of employees of Anti-Corruption Bureau will be very high, between 15 up to 30 minimal incomes. And another important provision which we are now bringing back, we have included former presidents of Ukraine in the scope of the Anti-Corruption Bureau, which means that active president is subject to special procedure of impeachment, while former presidents of Ukraine and their activities, corruption activities, may be investigated by the Bureau. This is extremely important. Also, an important aspect, the law clearly formulates conditions of the competition, how employees should be properly selected, preventing from the head of the agency from acting upon his own discretion. in the law about prevention of corruption. Actually, that law took into account many shortcomings which we had in previous legislation. Civil servants now have to provide information about final ownership of final beneficiaries of the enterprises which belong to them or to their relatives. The law is signed by Viktor Chumak, Serhiy Leshchenko, Yegor Sobolev, Ivan Kroyko, Savchuk, first deputy head of the committee, Dobrodomov, secretary of the committee, Igor Popov, deputy chairman of the committee. Actually, the law, this bill is signed by representatives of all factions, and opposition bloc won't sign it, of course. On Monday, on the advisory council of parliamentary factions, they will discuss this draft law and put it into agenda for next Thursday in order to get opinion from all the parliamentary experts. Anti-corruption law, does it provide for invitation of experts into the chairman position? We are now preparing another draft law about possibility for experts occupy leading positions in courts and law enforcement agencies. Thus, this will be regulated by special law. When we will have a special law about experts in Ukrainian governance, we will know the situation.
We spoke to 4 Georgian prosecutors, and we introduced one paragraph, and that is agreement with the investigation. But corruption crimes, they belong to especially heavy crimes, and but the agreement with investigation is very important, because through agreement with investigation you can reach high top officials and to investigate, and that's Georgian experience which we use in our criminal procedures code. Introduce. I have a question. Who postpones creation of that anti-corruption bureau? Could you give the name? Could you give a name? The second question, do you discuss candidates? Names who can run that bureau? Honestly, it's easier to say, to name those who promotes this bureau. The representatives of organizations, political forces, they are here. We will find votes and we will find political will. If it is President and Prime Minister will not express, they will ask people to help them with the will. As to the names, it will not be correct if we started discussing names. Let's have a competition. Anybody can apply who will meet requirements of the law, and will control that the competition commission is honest and choose the best. Choose the best. It's like with everything, like with immunity. Everything is with words, and even in the budget, the government They budget zero for this body that is going to fight corruption. And they say their excuse is they had no time to make calculations. Why do we need them? Officially, nobody is against, because it comes into force on January 25. The law provides that it doesn't stop the parliament, the government, and the president to do everything possible to build the competition committee and to select the head of the National Anti-Corruption Bureau. So officially, we have 1 more month before the law comes into force. But the issue is that there was a political agreement that on the 25th of January, since this law comes into force, the head of that anti-corruption should be there, should be in operation, and he should start working. He should start building the bureau. I can just add one point. Last night I sent a statement to leaders of the faction, to Yegor Leshchenko and Yuri Kononenko, that the process of nomination must start, and that there's a negative reaction in the society and abroad. So they are informed that it must take place. What decision they take, and what the president says, we will see that next week. Tell me, please, how do you assess nomination of Alexander Turchynov on the position of head of Security and Defense Council, and he will be also responsible for corruption fight? That will be an additional power, an additional function. Honestly, I'm positive about this. Why? Because I saw Alexander Volodymyrych and Alexander Turchynov in different circumstances. Since Maidan until now, I saw him in different circumstances. I know that this person is able to make very difficult decisions under difficult circumstances. And this is quite a good ground, and there will be decisions. They will consider many things related to the president, to the government, because he is the one. He's a point of contact for all. As to the corruption fight, no. Corruption fight is not. It's not. They are responsible for control of the bodies which fight corruption and also organize interaction, and these are completely different things than corruption fight. I would like to add, using this chance, I would like to ask the new Secretary of Security and Defense Council to support the idea of prohibition of trade prohibition with occupied territory, because this is a big source of corruption which undermines our security, which demoralizes our soldiers who see while they're fighting behind the back, they make business on their blood. That is the result of our trip. And such prohibition should be introduced as soon as possible as to Donbass and Crimea. And we ask the Secretary of the Defense and Security Council to support this idea. Do you have numbers, some statistics, comparative statistics? How many criminal charges and how many processes took place? How many corruption cases did we have during these months? And because real fighters of against corruption came to power, and so we like to hear statistics. We collected the statistics. Very difficult to get it. We have an official document which says that until 2014, since 2010, there were general prosecution. They sent it to court 4 accusations against 4 top officials. So, of the first and second level of the minister, deputy minister, deputies. How many accusations? How many sentences or verdicts were there? I don't know. How many politically grounded cases were there? I don't know. As to 2014, there is no statistics, but there are interesting facts with the investigation of financial crimes of ex-top officials, Zakharchenko, Kluyev, Yanukovych, Yefremov, no accusation was sent to a court. And as to some of these people who are under sanctions, and 22 people, they have not begun even investigation for financial crimes, for corruption crimes. And because of that, very soon the Council of Europe, 99%, they will make a decision that 3 people, they will cancel their sanctions against them, just because it's not because, yes, EU is bad, but because Ukrainian police did not investigate, has not investigated corruption crimes. And the same can happen to other sanctions. Just look, there is no accusation from the prosecution during 7 months, and the EU is waiting for that. That's a very negative signal. It says that we, without the Bureau, without independent law enforcement bodies, we are not able to investigate financial crimes. In fact, when they were stealing by wagons, and in the previous government and also in this government, one must urgently do something to this. And international donors understand that, I mean EU and IMF, and who directly say, first of all, reforms first, and the corruption fight, and then money. Thank you. I would like to make a comment as to sanctions, canceling sanctions by international EU. As far as I know, in general prosecution, they helped to one of these figurants, and they sent to his lawyers a letter that he is not, there is no any case against him in general prosecution. So lawyers received all the necessary documents to translate, to give that information to European Court, because in there were debates in general prosecution. So it's about Yegor about lustration law. Why have you supported for so long? Though international experts were against many paragraphs in that law. Look, our bandits who ran away from our court through Europe, they're trying to open the second front against the purification, against cleaning. There is no better supporter than the Venice Commission, because nobody loves lustration, and Venice Commission was always called as to the idea of lustration because of them there was no lustration in Albania. But after we explained to what is happening in our country, how our court and police are paralyzed, and that if we don't have illegal lustration of people can only use lynch, and they agreed. And their decision, first of all, they refused to denounce. And there was Serhiy Leshchenko in Venice Commission, and he sabotaged anything we prepared. So they expressed readiness together with the Ukraine to prepare amendments to that law. And thirdly, they told about those amendments that are not only necessary but also that can speed up the process. The first idea which we discussed is an independent body on lustration. Well, let's be sincere, in the Ministry of Justice, they don't have enough of political will to promote lustration. Journalists that belong to the Civic Council, they say there is sabotage in every bodies of power. How you can run lustration? The President of Ukraine holds the head of regional administration. He shows that you can violate the law. I speak about Kirovohrad governor, who was supposed to be dismissed according to the law. How you can run lustration when the head of the security service found 50 50 people who were in KGB in his structure of 30,000 people. So we need an independent body illustration, and we agreed we would prepare amendments to the law to approve it. The second idea of the Venice Commission was they were manipulated by our judges and friends who built the system of injustice, who told that as to judges there are two laws which overlap each other, and the judges go through double illustration. It's about the law on rebuilding the trust to judicial and also of purification of the. And we told them the bitter truth is developed with the assistance of European lawyers and approved the law on renovation, rebuilding the trust to judiciary. It doesn't work. Half a year after this, that law in force, there is no judge who was dismissed because of violation of the oath. Because our local judges did it very simple. They blocked bodies. They don't build the higher justice committee. When we had the discussion with the Venice Commission, they told, okay, now we understand the situation. Let's develop amendments to that law, which on one hand will consider the necessity to prevent the independence to the Institute of Judges. But on the other hand, they will give an answer how to solve the situation with sabotage and block in any law you have. The Venice Commission, the first time in its history, they gave a hand of assistance to the country which runs under illustration. Usually the Venice Commission was very cold to illustration because they are lawyers, and for them the violation, the breach of right for civil services, they take it as an element of punishment. We develop those amendments that we have not discussed with the Venice Commission. We discussed that with the President and also will bring such amendments to the law. We suggest, and it was like in Czech Republic, that with certain decisions we could make some exemptions to some people, like military men who were very brave on the front, who are respected by their fighting brothers, but who got under this law. Like General Vorobyov is one of the people who should be returned with a special decision. And we'll agree that it's very important people. We should provide such a right to return very important people back to the state service, to the civil service. They did it in Czech Republic. One amendment which is supported by Ukrainian citizens, we will suggest to the parliament to start with within the parliament, and in the next parliamentary elections, all candidates must go through the check according to the test of this law. It's the party origin didn't want to vote for that. It's like this story with the law on National Anticorruption Bureau and some other tools to fight corruption. Now it's time to do that. All in Ukraine who runs for high positions, they should be tested by the law, whether they are not KGB agents, whether they are not from environmental Yanukovych, whether they can explain their assets that they are legal. If they cannot, then they should be informed. Should be informed that this person violates the law because he's a former KGB, and voters should decide.
Just one question. Alexander. Igor, do you see any way out from this situation, either forced way out? I've been communicating with people, and people do not see any way out. I had a very tough discussion with volunteers from one volunteer battalion, and They loudly expressed their statement, their claims, and they directly said to me, if somebody is making artificial obstacles, then we may simply kill them because they are making so much harm than even separatists are not doing. The judge in Kharkiv mentioned that the judge in Kharkiv restored in position illustrated prosecutor, and nobody can do nothing actually. And those servicemen from volunteer battalion, they said, please bring to us this judge. We will tie her close to the minefield and she will see the situation here. And actually, we have reached the stage when if there is no political will, if there is no progress in this issue, we will call people to come into rallies. And nevertheless, we will do as much effort as possible to act via legal basis, including Venice Commission and press briefing of